The Old Gold Club, powered by Wolverhampton Building Supplies, with Mikey Burrows and Chris Iwelumo.
Welcome along to the Old Gold Club. I'm Mikey Burrows. Alongside me, Chris Iwelumo. Our guest this week is a bona fide Hall of Famer. He spent an incredible 16 years at Wolves, amassing 574 appearances, putting him second on the all-time list. He won 2 League Cups and reached the UEFA Cup final. We are honoured to welcome the great Kenny Hibbitt.
Hi.
Brilliant to have you with us. One of the things that we're going to get into, and I know Looms is really keen to talk about, is the longevity. We mentioned it there. 16 years at one football club is a remarkable amount of service.
Yeah, well, when you're with a great club, you don't really want to move on. I met a local girl in 71, married her in 73, and we stayed there up until the last 30 years when I got into management and moved down southwest. The club was a fantastic club, great history, great support. I had some fantastic fans that supported me, and there was no reason for me to move on.
So in that period of time, obviously you were performing very well, scoring goals as well. There's got to be interest coming in as well that head turned.
Yeah, there was. There was one Friday after training, before we travelled to Ipswich. Bill McGarry, manager, took me into his changing room and said he's had a £100,000 offer for you. I think that was around about the 70, 71, something like that. I hadn't been in the first team that long. And I said, well, who is it? He said, oh, I can't tell you that.
Right.
And this is a Friday before a big game. You know, that was on my mind. It played on my mind all night. I didn't sleep a wink. We got down to Ipswich, and some of the lads were saying, look up in the stand. And there was a chairman and a director and the manager all together. And I had a bloody nightmare. I just couldn't play. I just couldn't concentrate. I couldn't think about the game, and I had a shocker. And I blame Bill McGarry for that, because he really shouldn't have told me. He should have told me on the Monday after the game on the Saturday. It wouldn't happen now.
Well, it kind of happens in a kind of backward kind of way, because it's in the papers, the press, everyone's talking about it, and still you expect those players to go out and perform. But like say, your manager's pulled you the day before, he's told you, you look up in the stand, you know it's there, and it mentally affects you, doesn't it? Sometimes you couldn't sleep.
There's no question about that. Normally now they have an agent that they go through the agents, and then they would tell the player probably after the game or the Monday, which is probably the right way to do it. And there was time, there was when we sold Steve Daly to Man City. The Man City was also thinking about signing me as well, but that didn't really go on too far, and I wasn't really interested anyway. And that's when we sold Stevie to Man City, and we took Andy Graham. But after that, I don't know what happened after that, whether there was any more interest. If there was, it was quiet. It was kept quiet. But that's the only 2 times in the 16 years I was here that other clubs were interested.
Would you say back then that there was a lot more loyalty in the game? I know that, and I'm big. I think a loyalty is a two-way thing. You know, a football club to the player and the player to the club. And I think it's not great today. You know, at the end of the day, but you stayed at a club for 16 years. It doesn't really happen anymore. No. And when it does, it is a big deal.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I was just happy where I am, or where I was. I don't think there's any need for me. If I'd have been in and out the side, then you obviously look at it, you talk to your wife and discuss it. But I was enjoying myself so much. We had a lot of success in the 70s. The difference now is if a team gets relegated out of the Premier League, you look at some of the players who want to move on because of the financial side of things. In 75, when we got relegated, 76, we came straight back. Not one player wanted to leave. I didn't want to leave. We wanted to get the club back to where we wanted to be, which was in the first division. So nobody wanted to leave. Now you get that problem. Managers get that problem. The club gets that problem. We never had.
Is there also a thing about the way transfers work? Because nowadays we're in this scenario where every window, every January and every summer, fans want to see more players arriving and the squad changing. Whereas, I guess from your era, that didn't really happen, did it? No,
a transfer went through any time of the season or close season. It was 12 months of the year, I would have thought, yeah.
But it wasn't as if fans were there kind of going, oh, we want to go out and sign people. You had their heroes.
No, they did have the heroes, but every fan wants to see a successful team, and we were quite successful in them days. the manager would bring one player in or just to strengthen the squad up. But now the transfer window is, you've got to do it in August or July, and you've got to do it again in January. So there's a feeling of that if your team's not doing so well, the fans want at least 3 or 4 new players coming in all at once, just to give yourself a bit of a boost. It's completely changed around now. It's
Do you prefer it? Do you think it's with the window being that like the summer in January or all season through? Who benefits from what?
Yeah, it's a good question, but I feel that I think it should be open.
I agree.
And I think there shouldn't be a month to do it here and a month to do it there. I think it gets clubs into a lot of problems by probably signing players that didn't really
panic buys.
Yeah.
But then you have
money, you know.
But then you have that scenario where you get told the night before a game that someone's coming in to try and buy you.
Well, that was a one-off. I would have thought, and it was a shock to me. I was only like 20 years of age, and I didn't at the time feel it was the wrong time to ask me or to tell me. It was just that it was played on my mind, where I couldn't sleep at night that night, and the concentration levels was low, and just wondering who it might be. Where am I going? I don't want to go. I was very, very happy at this club.
You made your debut against West Brom, coming off the bench as a youngster. It gave you a little bit of a taste for it, but then you had a period that you were taken back. Having that little taste, how was that period? Because obviously you want to get back in again and playing and showing the manager what you're all about.
Absolutely. Well, I was doing reasonably well in the reserves with a lot of the other youngsters. We had a big squad of players. We had about 40 professionals here at the time. And I'd come from Bradford with only 15 or 16 professionals. And then you walk into this big club, and there was 20 in the bottom dressing room and 20 in the top dressing room. So you had to work yourself up to the top dressing room. But I played a lot of reserve games, and I was doing quite well. I thought I was doing well. The manager kept me out of it, actually. And then one day he came on the Friday and said, "You're in the squad for tomorrow against West Brom." And it must have been like, have a taste, have a feel, get the feel of the atmosphere in the ground. And I went on in the last 10, 15 minutes. And it was a real feeling, great feeling. And I wanted more of it. But it just left me out again until I made my debut the following year at Chelsea.
So how was that though? That obviously that's a test of character as well, because some players they can lose themselves in that, and the head goes. But he gave you that taste. You loved every minute of it. But it was the following year that you got thrown in, and then you never looked back.
Patience. I'm a patient guy. I'm a patient guy, and so I had a taste of it, and I wanted more of it. But I just had to be patient. And the manager, and the coach, Sammy Chung, said, your chance will come.
So there was dialogue between you all?
There was dialogue, but not too often, because it's very rare that Bill McGarry spoke to you. I mean, in all the years, I think 7 years with him, he only said, "Well done" to me once.
Really?
That he just put his... Yeah, we played Exeter in an afternoon because there was electricity shortage or something, power. And we played Exeter in the cup here, and we weren't playing very well, and it was 0-0, and I just scored last minute of the first half. So it took a little bit of pressure off him. The fans there were only about 3,500 here because it was an afternoon kickoff. And he came out because as a manager then, days you sat in the stand, in the director's box. And then he worked his way down the tunnel, and I worked my way up the tunnel. And just as I entered the dressing room, he came in at the side of me and said, "Well done, son." And I nearly fell over because he wasn't a guy that encouraged you and told you how good you played or how well you played or nothing. You just waited for the Friday or the Thursday when you had your training sessions or set piece, and that you had an idea that you were going to be in the squad. But that's how Bill was. And then he gave me the opportunity at Chelsea when it came. So I was patient, yeah.
Because he was a guy, obviously, one of the main things, obviously, we want to talk about is your era is the real glory days from this kind of, we were talking about it earlier in that, there's, for certain fans of certain vintages, like our great old friend sadly departed now, John Foz Henley, he always used to talk about the fact that when he came into it, he kind of just missed the 50s. So it was that 60s into the 70s. That's a good 20, 30 years of wall-to-wall success. And for that period in that early part of the 70s when you were there, when he was your manager, that is an incredible period. A team that built up, that got to the Texaco Cup, the League Cup, the UEFA Cup, 4th place finish in the top division, What was it about Bill McGarry that took the team to that kind of level?
Well, we talk about it quite a lot, the ex-players, and we don't know. But he was a hard man. He wasn't well liked by a lot of the senior players, but he was well respected, particularly from the younger players like Alan Sunderland, Jeff Palmer, Steve Daly, myself, John Richards. We respected him, but he was hard with us. He was harder with us than he was with the senior players. But some of the senior players, but we still went out there as a team, as a unit, and the camaraderie and the team spirit in the dressing room was first class, and that goes a long way. Whether you like the manager or not, you still have to go out there and play and perform. And when you walked out with the ball here and the fans, you were a Wolves player, and you'd never even thought about the manager. You just try to follow the orders he gave you on set pieces and free kicks and corners and stuff like that. But he was well respected.
You were a footballer. You're a born winner. You know, you don't have to like the boss.
Nope.
But you respect him for what he does. As hard as he wants to be, or as nice as he wants to be, you go out there to win. And I think a lot of teams are getting questioned today, and players are getting questioned today, that if they don't have that relationship, that it's so important that they still don't go out there and win. What's your thoughts on that as a professional footballer? I think even in training, I've seen fights happen in training just because you want to win. But then after training, it's all over and done with.
Yeah. We had a few scuffles in
I'm sure you did.
In our time, you know. I tried to break one up on the coach, and I got injured. I smacked my head on the top of the coach where you put your racket, on the rack.
Yeah.
Tried to break a little scrap up there. I thought I'll never do that again. But no, you're quite right. I mean, it does annoy me at times when players fall out with the manager and they go out there miserable and head down, shaking their heads and feeling sorry for themselves. You're getting paid to play on a Saturday. You're not getting paid from Monday to Friday. You get paid on a Saturday. That's when you work. That's where your job is. That's where people come to watch you play. It's like somebody on stage. You go into performance and you pay your money. And if they don't perform, you expect to get a bit of criticism for it. But Saturdays is what matters. 3 o'clock till 4:45. In the old days, it could be any time now. But that's how it was, And as long as you're working hard, the fans will accept that. And that's what my dad always said to me. Work hard, listen and work hard. And that's all I ever tried to do. Whether I was in a different or a bad performance, indifferent performance. The fans always just see me with sweat on my shirt.
Yeah.
And one of the best things since I've been, this summer I've been very busy talking to a lot of fans. And one fella said, it was the best quote I've ever heard in my life, and it brought tears to my eyes. This son said, "Why is Kenny Hibbitt's shirt all wet, all dark coloured?" And he said, "That's 110%, that's called. That's called 110%. So I was so humbled when he told me. I just filled up. But that's what and now I see players going out there, and going back to the original question, it does annoy me that because you don't like a manager, so you got to work. You got to work on a Saturday. You know what I mean? You know that. We've had experience. But I see that a lot in the Premier League in particular.
Was there a different aura around the football club then, though? Because I say, when you arrived, the club is still kind of in that period of really being a top level name, of playing European football, and you go on to play European football. What me and Looms were talking about earlier is that depending on your generation, you will have different views of what the football club is. So for my generation, it's kind of that out of the bowels of what happened in the late 80s and kind of scrapping, but being around that level of second division from your point of view.
Yeah.
When you arrived here, must have been very different.
Oh, it was, coming from Bradford, without question. I mean, I made my debut for Wolves Reserves at Old Trafford. And with all due respect, I was playing at Rochdale, Halifax, places like that. So now I've come to Old Trafford in 1968. They won the European Cup, United. And of course, my boyhood player, my favourite player, was Bobby Charlton. So I'm now on the pitch of playing on the same pitch as my boyhood idol in Bobby Charlton. And they just won the European Cup against Benfica in 68. So I've gone from there to there. This was a massive club. I mean, I have to say I was frightened to start with. I was only 17. And I'd lost my father just at 16. And so I got my brother was at Leeds. And it was Don Raver that told him that I should, when Wolves came in for me, should go, because I was tempted to stay at home. And I'm glad I came. I got on the train, and every time it stopped, I wanted to get off and go home. But he kept going, and I think that was my dad. And then I ended up playing at Old Trafford, and I come here, and this is just... it was a life I never dreamt of. I always dreamed of it, but never dreamt it would happen.
So you're saying they're coming across in the train, you're thinking every stop, I'll just get off. But how long till you felt at home?
It was a long time. I was in digs at Castlecroft for a few with Mr. and Mrs. Crean. They were fantastic. They looked at him like their own son. It must have been 2 or 3 years. There was a time when I had a cartilage like yourself. I had an injury early on in your career. I was 19. I did my cartilage in them days. It was like it was a threatening.
Yeah, they just cut it
career.
off, cut it away.
Yeah. Took the all that out.
Yeah.
And I was back playing in 6 weeks, so I was quite lucky and fortunate in that. But there was a time when I wasn't getting my opportunity before the West Brom that you told me about, or you asked me. I felt like going. I felt like packing it in, because I just felt I wasn't getting an opportunity like one or two of the other boys in the reserves. But I kept going. I kept working hard.
So was there anyone that you leaned on at that period, or was it just you yourself saying that I've got to stick it in here?
Me. It was myself, yeah. Well, I'd got really no one to speak to.
Right.
My dad wasn't there. My brother was in Leeds, so I thought, no, I'm going to see this through. I was determined.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it turned my way, and I got that opportunity, and I scored on my debut at Chelsea, and that was it. That was it. Brilliant. So, it can just change very quickly. So all these youngsters out there listening, you just got to keep going. Yeah.
Do you think a lot of that group had the similar attitude, and that's why you were the success that you were?
Yeah. I mean, John Richards came not long after me from Warrington. He played on the right wing in our reserves to start with, but he worked his socks off, and he was one of the best strikers this club's ever seen. Stevie Daly, Jeff Palmer, Alan Sunderland, all great young lads who came through together. Stevie Daly was an outstanding player. It was a bad move for him in the end, but I would like to. I played in midfield with him and Willie Carr, and that trio was something special, I felt.
Because one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about was the UEFA Cup run, because people associate Wolverhampton Wanderers, the 50s, those great floodlit games that led the way for European football.
You're quite right as well.
Yeah, but your year doesn't get talked about as much, I think, certainly for people of my generation. And yet, looking back through it over the last couple of days, I mean, Juventus, the mighty Juventus, and Ferencváros in the semi-final, because I think, was it your corner that led to
possibly
one of the key goals? Yeah. Modestly not remembering it. But I mean, these are some monumental names that Wolves were coming up against.
Well, Juventus, there was World Cup players in there. And I remember going over there, our first leg was in Turin. And the great John Charles, he was our guide. He took us around. He was an absolute legend over there. I mean, you talk about legends, this guy was like the Pope. I mean, they just bowed to him. He took us in shops to buy some Italian shoes, Italian leather shoes. And they just bowed to him. And he took us around, and we had a great time with him. And he did say to us, he said, you get a result here, half the team won't come over to England. And we got a draw. And half the team didn't come over. And we beat them here at Molineux. And we're not... To beat Juventus in them days was just as good as it is now. There was Anastasi was playing up front. I mean, and even the old England manager was playing at fullback. And I can't remember what his name is now. Was it Capello?
Fabio Capello.
And he played that day here, but we beat them. It's a fantastic venture for particularly the younger ones, we were playing around the Iron Curtain. When I was a kid, the farthest I went was Blackpool and Morecambe on a day out. But you come here and you're playing in Europe and you're flying all over the place. It was just a dream, and it's like it happened yesterday. And so long ago, but it still feels... Get goosebumps now. Travelling and beating these sides. We beat everybody. It beat all the foreign teams, and they get beat to bloody Tottenham in the final. Oh, beat AC Milan. I think it was Milan they beat. I think if Milan had beat them, we'd have beat Milan in the final. Yeah, but that was a two-legged one. But yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic period for us.
So on the spin of that, relegation. You said that the group stayed together because they wanted to get back. Relegation again. Time comes for you to move on. Had the club prepared for what came after?
They weren't prepared. I felt that when we came back in 75, 76, but in that later period, we won the League Cup again in 80. Yep. That's when it all went sour in 81, 82. We came back in 82. But after that, we should have been making, or the management should have been making changes on the field of play as much as anywhere else. We allowed us all to get older together, and we should have been replaced. And that included me.
You feel that yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Even though the group was as strong as that and the characters and played the way that they did, you felt that
we were getting old.
Youth should have been getting...
I think they tried to do that and it didn't work very well. But yeah, I definitely feel that, yeah. And that included me. And I did say at the time in the paper, look, we need change, even if it includes me. The club will always be there. The fans will always be there, but players move on. And it was a time that changes should have been made in them days, around that period. And we got relegated the following season, 83, and then it just went pear-shaped. And in 84, I left, and financially, the club was in dire straits. I never thought I'd see the change so rapidly, so quickly, the way it happened,
Was that quite hard for
Very
you
difficult.
and for a lot of the players of that era to take?
Oh, yeah. We still talk about it now a lot, but I went to Coventry City, and I had a really good 2 years at Coventry. They were great with me, great lads there, played with some really good players. But it all back in my mind was what was happening here at Molineux. And then they went down to 3 Division 4. And we've had 55,000 with 10,000 locked out here. There were 3,000 people. The fans was just had enough. And I don't blame them for not coming, but it needed somebody grabbing hold of it quickly, shaking it, and start moving back to where we belonged, But it took a long time to get there.
Yeah, and it didn't take long enough at all, did it, to go?
Oh, it doesn't. It takes a long time to build anything up, but it doesn't take it doesn't take a quarter of the time for it to collapse, and that's why you have to be on your toes all the time. And as a player, you have to work harder every day to retain your place in the first team, because there's always somebody behind you ready to take your shirt.
Kenny, we're going to talk a lot more about that on our podcast extra, and also I want to delve into a little bit more about certainly the 1980 League Cup thing, because it's a remarkable thing when you look at who you were playing against in that game. We do this thing called the rundown, where we kind of run through some kind of fairly quick questions. They're supposed to be quick fire, but it never happens. And Looms takes the mickey out of me for it.
It's no problem.
I'm going to ask you a question that I know you're not actually going to answer fully. Who was the best player that you played with at Wolves?
Every player I played with at Wolves.
All right. Worst trainer at the club?
Worst trainer? There were 2 or 3. Phil Parks, Frank Munro, Dave Wagstaff. They're the 3. They're the 3 degrees. I think there was a nightmare.
See, I love the fact that you won't say who the best player was, but
No.
the worst trainer suddenly.
Slung under the bus.
Well, that's easier. That's easier. But let's not forget. I mean, every player you play with out there is there to help you, and I'm there to help them.
Yeah.
So I could name a lot of players that I enjoy, but it's not in my nature to say that. Every player I played with at Wolves would put the shirt on. They went out there in the team that I played with, helped me perform. So, yeah.
Okay, this is an easier one. Who was the biggest moaner?
What's to get a little mirror?
I'm not far off of one. I'm not far off of that one. Excuse me. I'm not far off that one, but there's quite a few of us, I think. More so on training rather than on the field. We helped each other out there, but on the training ground there was several. Yeah.
Who's your best friend in football?
I've got a lot of good friends in football. I've played with a lot of them.
Yep.
John Richards is obviously a very close friend of mine. Willie Carr is a very close friend of mine. Stevie Daly, you know, I do a lot of Q&As with Stevie, so I've got to put him up there.
Yeah.
If you're listening, Steve, you know.
I thought he could have been in Biggest Moaner, to be fair.
No, it wasn't actually. He was all right. Phil Pat's, great guy, you know. Jeff Palmer. I can go on and on and on.
Yeah. The best and worst dress sense.
Oh my word. John Burridge, probably.
What was it about him?
Well, he'd come to work in anything, a skirt if he could. You know, we all came, you know, reasonably dressed smart, no collar and tie in them days, and but I think Budgie was a little bit different to everybody.
Who was the funniest player you played with?
Well, Stevie Daly.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Yeah, well, do you know, he used to drive me potty. He used to be in the dressing room, and I'd be sat in the corner, like, you know, you've been there, in your dressing room, the build-up before the game, before the bell goes at 5-3, and I'm looking at, I'm not reading the programme, I'm actually just looking at it, looking straight through it, just thinking about the game and what I'd do if I was in that position, and this, who I'm going to be marking and picking up. Stevie being the centre of the dressing room, giving all this, you know, you just tell him to shut up, you know. So I knew we were going to be an after dinner speaker afterwards, but that's the way he was before a game. That's his nerves. Everyone's different, yeah. And Waggy used to have a little fag at 5-3. One fag in his hand into the dressing room, into the toilets, and have a little quick puff before he went out. You know.
Best manager that you played for?
Well, I respected Bill McGarry. He gave me my opportunity, and he gave several youngsters their opportunities. But you learn from different ones. And I thought the best man manager was Ian Greaves in the short period he came to try and keep us up. I thought he was outstanding. He was fantastic. We had him for about 3.5 months, but he was a fantastic, man manager.
This is going to be difficult as watching all your goals. What was your best goal, the best goal you scored?
Important goal.
Whatever it means to you, the best.
Most important
goal.
The most important, the most important goal was obviously the cup final in '74, just before half time, 43rd minute. Remember that one. But a special one was probably chipping Pat Jennings in the FA Cup down at Arsenal. And also the fourth goal I got here against Newcastle when we beat them 4-2 and my brother played, so that was good. There's several, I mean, I can go
there's
on.
a few.
Yeah.
What was the best game that you were involved in?
Best game. There's several. I think the two cup finals and the UEFA Cup final are the three games that stick out because they were so important to the club and to the fans. You can pick the Newcastle one where we won 4 and got all 4 goals. There's several, but
Hard
I
to
just
pick
love
one of 570.
well, probably the '74 League Cup final was the first time I ever played there, and I've seen my name up in lights. My mother never saw the second half. Her eyes were full of tears. She said, "Kenneth, I never saw." I said, "Don't call me Kenneth. You only call me that when I'm naughty." She said, "I didn't see the second half. My eyes were filled up, just thinking that your dad would have loved to see you there." You know. Because Terry in '74, my brother played for Newcastle in the cup final, FA Cup final against Liverpool, but they got battered 3-0. But that was a great time. Yeah, great game.
This question probably aligns with that. What's your proudest moment with Wolves?
Yeah, it's got to be that.
Yeah.
Going up the steps, picking the trophy up and running around the stadium, showing it to the fans. Yeah, I still got a scarf that somebody threw over onto the pitch. But that was biggest thrill that was. Never thought it'd happen because as a kid,
you're giving me goosebumps here.
I know, but when as a kid, you always want to play at Wembley in a cup final, and I thought I'd never get there. I went to the League Cup, the FA Cup final in 1968. When West Brom beat Everton 1-0 when Jeff Hassel scored. I was there for that game. And I went in 71 when Leeds played Chelsea, just after the horse show, and the pitch was like deep in mud. And that was 2-2. And then 2 years later, I'm there. So it was just crazy. It was an amazing feeling.
Kenny, there is so much more to talk to you about. We'll continue this on our podcast, which of course is available to download from iTunes and Spotify. We should mention that Kenny has a book out, Seasons of My Life, that you've done with Tim Nash as well, foreword by John Richards. We'll talk a bit about that in the podcast extra as well. Thanks for watching.
The Old Gold Club, powered by Wolverhampton Building Supplies, with Mikey Burrows and Chris Iwelumo.